After our father passed away and Mom remarried, my stepfather only allowed her to take one child with her. My brother knelt in front of me, begging me to let him go with our stepfather. He said, "Brother, you're smart and strong. You're just fit to be a farmer. Without Mom's care, I'll really die." In the end, I chose to drop out of school and stay in the village. Meanwhile, my brother went with Mom to the city to study. But after arriving in the city, my brother became obsessed with a female live streamer. He used his tuition money to send gifts to the popular streamer Willow, claiming that this was true love. Furious, my stepfather stopped sending him money. But my brother then set his sights on the old house that my father had left behind. When I was away working, my brother secretly returned to the village and sold the old house. He even shamelessly said, "Once I send another round of gifts, Willow Goddess will definitely marry me and carry on our family line." At that moment, I was on a construction site carrying bricks. When I heard the news, I was so furious that I had a heart attack and fell from a high platform, dying on impact. But even the compensation for my death was snatched by my brother, who used it to send more gifts to Willow. I hated him. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on the day my brother begged me to stay in the village. This time, I kicked him away and walked straight to my stepfather. A worthless fool like him didn't deserve to be Willow's #1 fan. Someone said, "Brother, you're smart and strong. You could survive in the village, but without Mom, I'll really die." That familiar voice pulled me out of the darkness. The feeling of weightlessness and fear still lingered in my heart, and my body was trembling. But the face of my younger brother, Makoto, instantly brought me back to reality. Had I been reborn? With that thought, my heart began to race. In my past life, it was the same. Makoto had pitifully begged me to stay in the village while he followed Mom and our stepfather to live a life of luxury. Makoto was my twin brother, just 10 minutes younger than me. How could I bear to see him live a life of hardship? So I agreed. But what I didn't know was that when Makoto left with Mom, my nightmare had only just begun. At first, Mom sent me maintenance money. Later, the person transferring the money became my younger brother. The allowance dropped drastically, from 500 a month to 500 every 3 to 5 months. Makoto said our stepfather's family wasn't doing well and that was all they could give me. But it was nowhere near enough to cover my tuition and living expenses. Fortunately, the stepfather left me an old house, so at least I had a roof over my head. At a young age, I started working. But because of malnutrition, I often got sick, and I couldn't even attend the college entrance exam. Eventually, I dropped out of school. It wasn't that I didn't want to, it was that I couldn't. Later, I found out that our stepfather's family was not poor at all. Makoto had been living a good life all along. Luxury items, games, mansions, and cars, things I could never even dream of. But Makoto didn't appreciate it. He became obsessed with a female streamer, Willow, and spent all his money sending her gifts, even maxing out his credit cards. When our stepfather found out, he tried to talk to him several times, but it was useless. In the end, he had to cancel Makoto's cards. Who would have thought Makoto wouldn't learn his lesson and would instead set his sights on the house our stepfather left me? When I found out that Makoto had sold my house, I lost my balance while working at a height and fell, my brain matter spilling out. This time, I would not let Makoto take away everything that was rightfully mine. I looked at Makoto coldly and said, "Brother, we're both Mom's children. Let her decide." Mom looked at the two of us, clearly troubled. Makoto quickly changed his approach, sweetly linking his arm with Mom's and saying, "Mom, you know brother has always been smart. Even if he lives alone, he won't starve. But I can't do it. My health is poor, and I rely on you a lot. You can't leave me here alone." In my past life, Mom didn't hesitate at all. I had always helped her with housework, and when she worked, I took care of Makoto by myself. Mom knew exactly what kind of person Makoto was. It hadn't been easy for her to marry into a wealthy family, and if she brought along a useless person like me, our stepfather might look down on her. If it hadn't been for my insistence on sending Makoto away and telling her that I could manage on my own, how would Makoto have had such a good opportunity? Perhaps Makoto had already guessed Mom's answer and quickly shifted his focus to our stepfather. He grabbed his hand sweetly and said, "Dad, I'm very filial. Unlike my brother, he's always been antisocial. arguing with Mom and making her worry. If you take me back, I'll definitely behave well. I didn't expect Makoto to lie and smear my name. What was worse, the way he called our stepfather Dad so intimately was almost sickening. The stepfather didn't know us very well. He hadn't known Mom for long. She had hidden the fact that she had 2 sons from him, only revealing it after they got married. He was angry, but fortunately, he didn't bring up divorce. Instead, he said he would only take 1 child. This was probably his punishment for Mom hiding the truth from him. I wasn't like Makoto, who was smooth-talking. I had always been quiet, and elders generally preferred him. But what Makoto didn't know was that I had crawled out of hell. I was fully capable of playing the same tricks, I just didn't want to. Seeing the stepfather's expression soften slightly, I stepped forward and mimicked Makoto's tone. Dad, I've always been the one studying hard and enduring hardships. I've helped Mom with the work. Makoto has always been protected by us, but it's time for him to learn to be independent. Makoto glared at me fiercely, his eyes filled with poison, teeth clenched. Then he immediately put on a pitiful act. Brother, why are you trying to take everything from me? Haven't I given you enough since we were kids? Now I just want a home, a father, and you're doing this. Even though the stepfather didn't know the full truth, with Makoto and me arguing back and forth, he probably started to sense that something was wrong. I wouldn't fall into Makoto's trap of self-pity. Instead, I looked to Mom for help. Makoto could cry, but I could cry too. When we were young, no matter how hard life was or how wronged I felt, I never cried. That only made me endure more unfairness. And it always seemed that Mom favored Makoto more. If not for the stepfather possibly looking down on her, she probably would have chosen Makoto without hesitation again. The truth is, all this talk of family and blood ties, everyone is just protecting their own interests. Mom was no exception. I already had an advantage over Makoto, and now I would seize the chance to show it. Makoto probably never imagined that the older brother who never competed would now fight with him. I looked up at Mom with tear-filled eyes, fragile and pitiful. Mom, I'm not afraid to endure hardships with you. I just want to stay by your side forever. You know my grades have always been top-notch. If I leave you, I'll probably drop out. Makoto is different. He never liked studying. Don't worry, I'll study hard. After I graduate, I'll make money and take care of him. Mom had never mentioned our stepfather's background, so neither Makoto nor I knew he was wealthy. But Makoto had asked around and lied to me, saying the stepfather was poor and that he only wanted to stay by Mom's side. In my past life, I didn't fight for anything. I thought hardship was everywhere. Since Makoto loved following Mom so much, I let him go. If I hadn't lived twice, I would still have been fooled by him. The idea that he couldn't live without Mom was just an excuse. He only wanted to enjoy the life of a rich second generation. The stepfather looked at me in surprise, about to speak, but Makoto beat him to it. Brother, what nonsense are you talking about? Saying you want to live a hard life. Dad is so successful. Are you cursing him to go bankrupt? Brother, your heart is really wicked. Then he turned to the stepfather and said flatteringly, Dad, please don't be mad at my brother. He's always been a big talker. I've gotten used to it over the years. Now Makoto wasn't even pretending anymore, but that worked in my favor. I smiled faintly. But you said we lived a hard life with Mom. I'm willing to endure hardship. Makoto probably realized he had fallen into my trap. He went silent for a moment before quickly changing his tone. No, I just heard that Dad's life is good. I knew Makoto well. Once his lies were exposed, he became incoherent. Now, whatever he said only sounded like excuses. The stepfather's expression darkened as he looked at me. Are you really willing to endure hardship with us? Tears still welled in my eyes as I nodded. Mom has worked hard for us her whole life. I just want to stay with her and make her suffer less. Mom smiled with relief, and the stepfather nodded approvingly. Makoto glared at me with malice, but I lowered my eyes, hiding the darkness in mine. In the end, the stepfather decided to take me and leave the old house to Makoto. Makoto knew it was settled, but he didn't want me to have an easy time. As we were about to get into the car, He grabbed my hand tightly and raised his voice on purpose. "Brother, I'm really happy for you. Just hope you don't cheat in the city. It would ruin Dad's reputation." He knew the stepfather liked me because of my academic performance, and he deliberately struck at that weakness. If this were before, I would have panicked and tried to explain myself. But now, I simply smiled calmly. Makoto was too naive. Even if the stepfather believed him for a moment, doubt would still linger. And time would reveal the truth. Seeing I wasn't angry, Makoto gritted his teeth and leaned close to whisper, "I'm telling you, you're enjoying a good life with Mom now. If you don't send me money, I'll destroy your happy life. If I can't have it, you won't either." I patted his shoulder and said loudly, "Little brother, how can you ask me to deceive Dad for money? We're still young, we should focus on studying. Don't worry, I'll work while studying and make money for you." The surroundings fell silent. Everyone looked at Makoto. His face turned bright red. He pointed at me but couldn't form a single explanation. I grabbed his finger gently. "Brother, you have to study hard. We'll work hard together. Even though I left with Mom, you're still my brother. No matter how bad my life gets, I won't let you suffer. After all, you've been spoiled by Mom and me since you were little." Wasn't he trying to ruin my reputation? Why couldn't I return the favor? I was only using his own methods against him. The stepfather looked at Makoto with disappointment, sighed deeply, and drove away. In the car, the stepfather suddenly said, "How about I give him 10,000 yuan a month for living expenses?" Mom didn't object. Instead, she turned to me. "George, what do you think?" I remembered that in my previous life, the allowance had only been 500 yuan a month, and I had complained to Mom for a long time. Back then, I thought she wasn't doing well at the stepfather's place and that bringing Makoto along made it harder, so I kept quiet. But now I understood. In my past life, when the stepfather proposed this idea, Mom had first asked Makoto what he thought. My gaze turned cold. Growing up, I never said I treated Makoto like royalty. But whenever someone else had something, even if I had to grit my teeth, I would fight to get it for him, even at the cost of myself. I never expected Makoto to hate me this much. I clenched my teeth, forced a smile, and said, 10,000 yuan is too much. Makoto is still a child. Without family to keep him in check, he might develop bad habits. That would ruin him. Besides, he's in the village. His expenses are low, and Grandma is there to look after him. In my opinion, 500 yuan a month is enough. Mom hesitated, looking at me in disbelief. Maybe in her eyes, I was still the older brother who loved Makoto the most. The stepfather glanced at me appreciatively. I seized the moment and added, Mom and Dad have already had it hard enough. I've already become a burden to you. I'll work hard to make money for Makoto. When my mom heard that, she finally let out a sigh of relief. After I repeatedly reassured them and insisted, Mom and Dad finally agreed to give Makoto 500 yuan a month for his living expenses. The moment I stepped into my stepfather's house, the spacious villa still left me a little stunned. In my previous life, I only found out the stepfather's family was wealthy after I had dropped out of school and started working. It was Makoto who flaunted it in front of me every single day that I came to know. Seeing everything now, my emotions were still hard to steady. But in front of my stepfather, I couldn't allow myself to look too shocked or exaggerated. The reason my stepfather cancelled Makoto's card in the past was because Makoto spent recklessly, not to mention his vanity. As it turned out, my stepfather didn't like children like that. No matter how much he loved Mom, he could never fully accept a useless burden. So I had to prove my own worth. Of course, I also needed to show my gratitude to my stepfather. So when I noticed he was secretly observing me, I slowly let my tears fall. He asked in surprise, "What's wrong?" Wiping my tears, I replied, "I thought you and Mom were living a hard life. This is too good. I can't bear to see the two of you working so hard just to make ends meet. It's really too good." My stepfather patted my head with a satisfied smile. "George, you're really understanding. You care about us." When he motioned for someone to take me to my bedroom, I trembled as I looked around at the room filled with luxury brands and the bedroom I had never even dared to imagine. Even after living two lives, I had never had a room of my own. In my previous life, although my stepfather left me the old house, my grandmother lived there with me, and my uncle's family moved in as well. My cousins slept in what should have been my room, my uncle and aunt took the master bedroom, my grandmother had a fairly large room too, and I was the only one sleeping in the storage room. I wasn't as ruthless as Makoto. In my past life, when he set his sights on the old house, he didn't hesitate for a second and directly kicked out my uncle's family. At the time, I thought it didn't matter if I suffered a little, as long as I could go home and have a warm meal. I had always endured it, choosing to suffer myself so others could live better. But why was it that after sacrificing again and again, those who never gave anything still lived better than me? This time, I wouldn't be that foolish. I had had enough of the hardships of working on construction sites. That evening, Makoto angrily called me. He shouted, "George Ito, why are you so vicious? You're blocking my path to becoming a rich kid. You deserve to die." I had already expected that Makoto wouldn't let me off easily. Even though things were settled, he wouldn't let me have a moment of peace. He demanded, "That old man said he would give me 10,000 yuan a month for living expenses. How did it turn into 500 yuan when it came out of your mouth?" Before I could respond, Makoto continued ranting into the phone. I really didn't expect Mom to tell him the truth. It seemed that in her heart, Makoto was still her favorite. If this were the past, maybe I would have felt sad. I still remembered in my previous life, when I was forced to drop out of school and work on a construction site. I only wanted to buy an electric bike for commuting, so I gathered the courage to call Mom and ask to borrow money. At that time, she coldly said, "You're already grown up. Besides, didn't your stepfather leave you a house? You shouldn't be so greedy." Even after I died, Mom went so far as to help Makoto escape public condemnation, testifying that I had taken my own life. I should have realized long ago that Mom and Makoto were both selfish and self-serving. Now that I had been reborn, I wouldn't expect anything from her anymore. The fact that she told Makoto the truth was only so he wouldn't blame her later. I had to admit, she played the shift-the-blame game well. I calmly replied, "First of all, my surname is Wong now. You can call me George Wong or Young Master Wong. Secondly, yes, I did this. If you don't want me to live well, why should I let you? By the way, you'd better focus on yourself. In a few days, you won't even be able to keep the house." With that, I hung up. Unfortunately, Makoto hadn't been reborn like I had. If he had, I would have spared no effort describing all the hardships and pain I endured in my previous life, letting him slowly feel the torment. Since that wasn't possible, let him be the frog in boiling water. As for why Mom didn't secretly give Makoto more money, I knew she didn't dare. Now that we were living in my stepfather's house, everything we wore and used was provided by him. Mom wasn't stupid enough to do something like that. After all, helping her ex-husband's son would be humiliating. And I didn't need to worry about what Mom would do. We just had to mind our own business. What I wanted was my stepfather's favor. As for family blood ties, I didn't want any of that. I only wanted money. My stepfather transferred me to the best high school. Even though it was already my third year, I had been studying in my hometown before, where the teaching quality was lacking. As a result, my midterm exam scores weren't ideal. To my surprise, when I returned home nervously, I found Makoto already there. I was startled, but he said proudly, "Hey bro, I came to see you. I heard your midterm results came out, and I'm here to report my scores to Mom too." I don't know why, but something about his gaze felt off. In the past, although his eyes were always scheming, there had still been a kind of foolishness in them. Both Mom and my stepfather were present, and my stepfather seemed more concerned about my results. He asked me to take out my report card. As I hesitated, Makoto rushed over, snatched my bag, and dumped everything onto the floor. He found the report card and handed it to my stepfather. My stepfather's face immediately darkened when he saw my sharply declining scores. Makoto looked at me triumphantly. "See, bro. I told you to study seriously. You insisted on cheating. But at this school, the supervision is strict, and you couldn't cheat. Now look, you've embarrassed Mom and Dad. Unlike me, even though I didn't come first in class, I made it into the top 10. He proudly handed his report card to my stepfather as if presenting a treasure. My stepfather's expression was complicated. He glanced at me, then at Makoto, his eyes filled with unspoken disappointment. I was curious. Makoto had never been a good student, usually second to last or last in class. How could he suddenly rank in the top 10? Something was definitely wrong. Before I could say anything, Makoto seemed to anticipate it. Mom, Dad, I know you think my brother is better than me, but I've been working hard. Don't worry. I'll get a good ranking in the college entrance exam, and maybe then I can come back to be with you. I never expected that this was his real purpose for coming. Mom looked at him, her eyes lighting up with hope, and hugged him affectionately. You really are a good son. Then she turned to my stepfather with a pleading look. Honey, they're twins. You wanted the most outstanding child to help you in the future. How about this? Let's wait until their college entrance exam results come out and then decide who to keep. For now, let Makoto stay. My stepfather hesitated. Makoto squeezed out a few tears and said pitifully, Dad, you don't know, my uncle and aunt have taken over my room. I don't even have space to study at night. Please let me stay. I won't disappoint you. He shot me a provocative glance. In the end, my stepfather agreed. That night, Makoto walked into my bedroom, looking around as if reminiscing. I miss this place. It used to be mine. But George, don't think you're the only one who's been reborn. I gave a faint smile. From the moment Makoto showed up in the house, I had suspected he had returned from his previous life. Otherwise, with his childhood courage, he would never have dared to do this. He walked toward me slowly. My dear brother, only a fool like you wouldn't use the situation with uncle and aunt to your advantage. You let them bully you. I'm telling you, my goal was never that broken house. I'm here to take back what belongs to me. Do you think your 2 lifetimes of memories will help you drive me away? Fool. He didn't care how I reacted. Maybe he enjoyed seeing me look dumbfounded. After boasting for a while, he left. My expression slowly shifted from shock to a smirk. That's right. I did it on purpose. I knew Makoto had returned. I had heard he accidentally fell from the 2nd floor at school, and when he woke up, he was mumbling deliriously, I'm going to give Willow gifts. I'm the rich 2nd generation. From that moment I knew. So I deliberately failed my exams, making Makoto think I was struggling in the new environment. In my previous life, I dropped out before even taking the college entrance exam. He, on the other hand, came back with memories of our past lives, so he was confident. But Makoto forgot one thing. I didn't drop out because I couldn't study. I dropped out because I didn't have money for school. I had to make sure he came back. How could I carry out my revenge if he wasn't within my sight? Since Makoto returned, we've been going to and from school together every day. Although he appeared hard-working, with his desk lamp always on at night, I knew better. He wasn't studying. He was either watching live streams of beautiful women or reading comics. Yet this behavior actually earned him even more favor from my stepfather, while I maintained a steady routine, sleeping early and waking early. The knowledge from my previous life was already deeply ingrained in me. One weekend, Makoto burst out of his room, tears streaming down his face. He rushed to grab Mom's arm, staring at my stepfather. Choking, he said, Dad, Mom, my room is so small. I saw mice, and it's damp. Could you please let me have another room? It was obvious. He wanted to switch with me. Even though my stepfather lived in a mansion, aside from the master bedroom and mine, which were spacious and sunny, the other rooms were guest rooms. My stepfather glanced at me hesitantly. Mom immediately decided. George, you know your brother's health hasn't been good. He needs sunlight. And he's been studying so hard lately. It doesn't matter where you sleep. Let him have the room. Makoto smiled smugly. I had long given up hope in Mom. Her tone made it clear she was used to me always giving in to Makoto. I didn't argue. In fact, it gave me a chance to expose his fake effort. So I nodded obediently. Mom didn't thank me. I knew she had planned this all along. They were working together to push me out. If my stepfather hadn't initially had a good impression of me and remained neutral about Makoto, and if he hadn't given me a second chance after my poor scores, I would have already been replaced. But I knew I only had one chance to fail. A businessman's tolerance isn't endless. Then I led them into Makoto's room. I casually opened his desk drawer and found a hidden compartment. Inside were comic books, many of them rare editions worth thousands, practically impossible to get without spending a fortune. I gasped in surprise. Makoto panicked and rushed over to stop me. Maybe he was so pleased about taking back what he thought was his that he forgot about the other things he was hiding. But it was too late. Covering my mouth, I said, "Wow, brother, you have so many comic books. I really envy you. All I have are test papers and exercise books, and you even have time to read comics. Did you spend all your pocket money on this? Oh my gosh, some of these are rare editions. I'm so jealous." Mom and my stepfather stood beside me. Surely, this was proof enough. The comics clearly showed signs of being read, and the volume he had gone through in just 2 months proved he hadn't been studying. Moreover, my stepfather had recently increased his allowance significantly. He was wealthy, but not a fool. That wasn't all. I noticed Makoto's phone charging nearby. Though it was on silent, I could see Willow, the live streamer, swaying on the screen. So I casually picked up the phone and lightly waved it in front of my stepfather, pretending to be shocked. "Brother, you can't be watching this kind of borderline content. You're still so young. This kind of vulgar live stream will negatively affect your growth and health." As I spoke, I clicked on the leaderboard and saw his name shining brightly at number 5. He must have spent at least 50 to 60,000 yuan on this. Although my stepfather was a bit older, his company was in the internet business, so there was no way he didn't know that Makoto was spending money on livestream gifts. I knew that once Makoto let his guard down, he wouldn't be able to hide his true nature. It was only a matter of time before he slipped up. What I needed to do was make him relax, let him think everything was going according to his plan. Otherwise, how could he expose his true colors? Makoto panicked, quickly grabbing the phone from my hands and glaring at me with malice. Then, in a rush, he tried to explain to our stepfather, "Dad, you're mistaken. This isn't mine. I was just helping my brother out. The gifts were from him." Such a clumsy performance couldn't fool anyone. But what I didn't expect was that Mom slapped me across the face, stuttering as she scolded me, "How could you let your brother do this for you? And then frame him like that? Where would he even get the money?" Maybe Mom had forgotten that when Makoto lived in our hometown, she didn't dare give him extra money for fear of angering our stepfather. But since we moved here, she had withheld my allowance and given it all to Makoto. Where else could Makoto have gotten money if not from her? I covered my stinging cheek and said, feeling wronged, "Mom, I really didn't do anything. I don't even have any pocket money. How could I have money for gifts?" My stepfather grew suspicious and asked Mom for her phone to check the transaction records. She hesitated, too guilty to hand it over. But seeing his expression change, she finally relented and shakily gave him the phone. He opened the transaction history and, as expected, saw that the money he had transferred to Mom was almost entirely given to Makoto, with only a few hundred given to me as pocket money here and there. I couldn't help but smile faintly, just waiting for the show to unfold. He threw the phone back to Mom and sneered coldly, "Well, well, you're George's real mother, yet you're so biased toward your son." When I heard those words, something inside me cracked. Yes, we're both her sons, so why was she so biased? Was it because I always let Makoto have his way? Was it because the crying child always gets the candy? I didn't know. But what I did know was that my stepfather, a complete outsider, was speaking up for me. Even though we weren't blood-related and he only needed to choose one good foster child, he still defended me. My heart ached, and before I knew it, tears were falling. Mom stayed silent, chastised by him as he decisively said, "I don't see any reason to switch rooms. As for the pocket money, I will personally transfer George's share to him from now on." Looking at his back, my vision gradually blurred. Although he was a bit older and didn't have children of his own, he truly treated my mother well. In my previous life, even though he had no intention of taking me in, he still left me a room. Maybe it wasn't because he wanted to keep his distance. Perhaps from the beginning, he chose to bring only one child to avoid the kind of scheming and rivalry that was happening now. In my previous life, I couldn't understand this. But now I realized that he once had a brother, and they had fallen out over an inheritance dispute, severing all ties. So he was afraid. But I wanted to tell him that some people are born never satisfied, they can't appreciate the bond of family. Makoto and Mom glared at me harshly. Then Makoto angrily shouted, "Is this what you wanted, George? Let me tell you, I won't back down. You're the one who needs to leave." I didn't respond. There was no point wasting my breath on someone like him. After a month of hard work, the long-awaited college entrance exam finally arrived. My stepfather took a day off and insisted on personally escorting both Makoto and me to the exam hall. Before we left, Mom kept reminding Makoto about various details, even stuffing hot buns and eggs into his bag. When it came to me, she casually threw a bread roll at me without saying a word. My stepfather seemed to notice my disappointment and immediately had the maid put the breakfast he had prepared for himself into my bag. That long-lost fatherly love, though he wasn't my biological father, he treated me better than my real one ever had. Before leaving, Mom exchanged a glance with Makoto, as if communicating something. At first, I didn't understand. But when I took out my exam registration card, I realized it had been switched. That's when I understood. Mom genuinely wanted me to leave. Even though I could understand her favoritism toward Makoto and her desire for him to stay by her side, I couldn't accept her sacrificing my future for his. She then sent me a message, unmistakably threatening, "I'm telling you, write Makoto's name on the exam paper. I'm your mother, and I have the right to decide everything for you." Luckily, I had long seen through my mother's true nature. Otherwise, I would have been deeply hurt. In my previous life, I had already endured unbearable pain, while she never once considered any way to keep me around. But as soon as Makoto played the victim, she would instantly surrender. I sent the screenshot to my stepfather. Even though he had already driven away, upon receiving my message, he immediately turned the car around and returned. He appeared just as we were about to enter the exam hall. He grabbed Makoto by the arm and forcefully demanded that he return my exam registration card. Just seconds earlier, Makoto had smugly whispered in my ear, "George, you think you can surpass me? Not a chance. I have countless ways to make you leave this house." But now he was completely panicking. To avoid upsetting my stepfather, he pretended to be apologetic and said, "I'm sorry, Dad. I was careless and mistook the name on the exam card." My stepfather was unmoved. "The person you should be apologizing to is your brother." Makoto was humbled, and my stepfather comforted me. "Focus on your exam. Don't stress." I wasn't sure how much genuine affection he had for me. But in this world, genuine feelings didn't seem so important. What mattered was that I had to give it my all, become someone valuable, and prove I was worthy of staying by his side. I nodded. Just then, the bell rang, and he left. Makoto shot me a venomous glance. During the long wait for the exam results, Mom and Makoto were far from peaceful. They either glared at me or threw cold words my way, as if it were unforgivable that I hadn't swapped places with him. When the results came out, Makoto scored over 500 points, but my score was hidden. He proudly skipped in front of my stepfather and said, "Brother, could it be that your score got cancelled because you cheated? What's with you always trying to take shortcuts?" Mom immediately added, "I'm sorry, dear. It's my fault for not teaching George properly. I've embarrassed you. I'll make him move out now." Even though Makoto scored over 500 points, with some extra effort he can retake the exam and get into Capital University. I said nothing, just quietly watching this mother-son duo show off. My stepfather didn't speak either, but I could feel him observing me, watching how I would handle this unexpected pressure. Perhaps my calmness pleased him, because he cleared his throat and laughed coldly. "Only high scores would be hidden. You two really don't get it, do you?" Mom and Makoto exclaimed in disbelief, "Impossible! George always failed before. How could he have a high score?" He sneered. "Can't you see that George is controlling his scores? Every subject is just above the passing line, not 1 point more, not 1 point less. But you, my dear son, are copying others. Do you really think I'm blind?" I hadn't expected him to be so sharp, completely aware of both Makoto's and my situations. I couldn't help but admire him even more. Makoto, guilty and anxious, couldn't look Mom in the eye. No matter how much she questioned him, he refused to speak. It wasn't until the phone call from Capital University came through that Mom heard firsthand that I could choose between two top universities in the capital. That was when she completely collapsed onto the floor. My stepfather slowly stood up and walked over to her. Standing beside her, he said, "Let's get a divorce. If we ever have children, I'm afraid you'll only blindly favor Makoto." Mom was stunned, as if struck by thunder. She tightly grabbed his pant leg and pleaded, "It won't happen. I swear I won't care about Makoto anymore. Please don't divorce me. And George is the top scorer, right? He's also my son, and he brought you honor. If you divorce me, George won't be by your side to honor you. Wouldn't you have raised him for nothing?" His eyes were cold, but his voice firm. "I will continue to support George." Mom completely lost her strength. Makoto, like a madman, tried to argue with him, but the two of them were immediately thrown out by the bodyguards. He looked at me meaningfully and asked, "Do you think I'm being heartless?" I watched them both lose their minds, my eyes growing colder. If a person is too greedy, they don't deserve to have everything. My answer was clear, and he seemed pleased. When I went to school to register, Mom called me, asking me to send her money. She said that over the years Makoto had stolen her small savings and spent it all on tipping Willow, the streamer. I wasn't surprised. It felt like justice being served. I replied indifferently, "You're no longer my mother. Didn't Dad leave you a house? People shouldn't be so greedy."